Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Tuesday, February 9th. I'm Gary Stevens. Second Tuesday of the month, we devote this half hour to finding out what's going on at the Holland Museum. And to help us do just that, we have the executive director of the Holland Museum join us on the other end of our Zoom connection, Ricki Levine. Ricki, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Thank you. Good morning, Gary.
Glad you are with us. And if you wish to have a question for Ricki about what's going on at the museum, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. From time to time, our appearance comes before the second Monday of the month, which is those free Mondays, which means it was yesterday. Sorry, but the next one's coming up on March the 8th, and it's a chance for people to find a little hidden jewel over at the intersection of 10th and River in downtown Holland.
That's right. It's a way for the entire community to come and explore, and there's no admission from 4 to 7 o'clock at night.
And that'll be, of course, the second Monday of the month, but the museum is open Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. The 10 to 11:30 a.m. Monday segment, I want you to sort of explain a little bit, because that is set aside for people that maybe can't have the mask on right now.
That's right. So, we want to be very inclusive. We want to welcome everyone, and we want everyone to feel comfortable. So there are people legitimately that can't wear masks for medical reasons. And so we set aside from 10 to 11:30 on those Mondays, every Monday, for those people to come in and feel welcome and not have to justify or explain, and everybody will understand. We ask that if you do bring somebody with you that can wear a mask, that they do. All of our volunteers and staff will be wearing masks at that time, because we want to keep everyone as safe as possible.
Now, one other health situation, and it's been that way since, unfortunately, this past March, and it looks like it's going to continue until further notice. The Spark Lab, that's been a very successful part of the museum, still closed, because that's very much hands-on, and it's kind of tough to do something hands-on right now.
It is. We are exploring some ways that we might be able to open for very small groups, maybe by appointment only. So we're in the exploration stages of that. And that goes to our historic homes too, which are closed for the season. We are not open generally at this time of year, but to reopen those in the spring and give tours, we're looking at that possibility as well. So stay tuned, Gary. I'll be sure to fill you in when we decide that we can do something and how we're going to do it.
395-1450 if you have a question for Ricki Levine of the Holland Museum. Last chance we have to talk about an exhibit at the museum that's been running since October. Certainly, Election 2020 has gendered a lot of interest, but the history of elections in the city of Holland has been a long-standing exhibit, and it winds down this month.
It does. It closes on February 22nd, so it is, as you said, the last couple of days to be able to see that exhibit. We really enjoyed having it up. We thought it was timely to put up something that was related to exhibit elections, but not necessarily about this past election. Really things that people gathered and captured during their time being participants in other elections in years past.
Now, Ricki, the exhibit runs through February 22nd, and the official title is Election Reflection Memorabilia from Holland, Michigan. Basically going through, I believe, 2016, nothing from this year's election, because obviously the exhibit had to be set up before this year's election. But certainly there's plenty of buttons and bumper stickers and probably some photos as well from candidates, and not only on the top of the ticket, but all the way down, and some unusual items that made its way through the Tulip City in trying to get people elected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and some of them may have been people that lived here and it was election that was close to their hearts, or it may be somebody that lived here that captured memorabilia from other elections. But you're right, it goes through 2016, and we even have some commercials running on a video loop, which are super fun, back when commercials were not quite as nasty as they've come over recent years. So it's kind of a nostalgic look. It's not at all partisan. We're really showing just what people decided to keep as a keepsake about elections.
Now, because of the situation we're in right now, um, not as many people can come to the museum. And a lot of people are sort of hesitant about coming to the museum anyway. They want to be on the safe side. Has there been any way to maybe make a small sample of this sort of as a virtual exhibit so that people, when they come to hollandmuseum.org, can be able to see at least get a feel for this entire exhibit?
It is something that we will be putting up. It is not up there now because we really would like people to come in physically. But yes, we do completely understand. And then there's also people that are not living close enough to come to see the exhibit right now. So we are doing that, but it will be up at a future date, and we will again keep you posted on that. But we are trying to make, again, all of our exhibits, all of our programs as accessible as possible.
Yeah, I'm just saying, again, I wasn't saying put the whole thing on virtually, but at least get a flavor. I think that was the term I was trying to bring out of so that people, maybe it's a good way of, using a marketing strategy. It's good advertising. You show a little glimpse, and people want to go and see more of this.
Yeah, well. That little tease that you have to show. Absolutely.
395-1450, 395-1450. We'll talk about the future exhibits once this election exhibit ends in a little bit later in our discussion. And again, when we put this podcast on our website at WHTC.com, we'll put a link to hollandmuseum.org where people can click on and and peruse at their own time and time and speed as to what they want to see from the museum. Now, from your notes here, the Holland Museum has a unique platform to engage other nonprofit social service organizations, schools, and universities in partnerships that would bring awareness and meaningful conversations to the community. That's part of being a good corporate or a civic citizen. And certainly the museum is doing that. Tell us about some of the things along those lines that the museum is doing.
As an arts and cultural organization and a community organization on top of that, we feel it's our responsibility to really be a platform, be a place for people to share their stories, share their viewpoints, and learn. Museums are educational institutions, whether they're fun in the process or you're taking a dive into something that might be historically disturbing, but it's still part of history, and so therefore it needs to be shared. So we have been having ongoing conversations with lots of different local organizations. We've partnered on some of our programs. We've partnered on some of our activities and our conversations. So for instance, with Hope College, we're working on a program right now to bring an upcoming exhibit that won't be until next summer. But after that exhibit, that physical exhibit is in our galleries, we are digitizing that exhibit. And we're working with Hope College students as well as faculty to make that happen. So there are lots of ways to partner with different community organizations. And certainly, like I said, our programs, we've had a lot of speakers that come from different local organizations with their expertise, and we give them a platform and a topic to speak about. And it's been really very engaging, and it's gotten a lot more people involved. Even during this pandemic, a lot of people are participating in our programs, many who may not even get to the museum even when we were not in COVID because of logistic reasons. So we're delighted to be able to expand our audience through that.
Ricki Levine, talk a little bit about the advantage that the Holland Museum has. I don't want to say a competitive advantage from other museums, but an advantage I would believe that the Holland Museum would have with access to not only Hope College and its history, but to the students as well, sort of as a way for the students to get classroom education in a practical sense by working hand in glove with the Holland Museum. I think that's an advantage, to me, an advantage the Holland Museum might have over maybe other museums in the sense that, hey, we have a ready resource of young men and women willing to help us do the research, do the gumshoe work that sometimes it's kind of tough to try to find volunteers to do.
Well, we have a great internship program, and it's most robust during the summer months, but it's not completely off limits during the winter season or the school season. And we've had lots of interns from Hope as well as some other higher ed institutions come in and do exactly that. They do research. Spark Lab, you mentioned that before, our hands-on Smithsonian workspace, which really challenges kids to get engaged with their hands and start thinking about invention and the process of invention. And since we've opened Spark Lab, we've had at least one, sometimes two interns a summer that come up with some problems and activities for kids to participate in. We've had interns at our historic homes, the Capon and the Settlers House, doing research and building tours and creating opportunities to expand the information that we already know. But then there's other things that we're still learning about. Families in the Settlers House, for instance, there were so many different families that lived there over the years that we don't have a whole lot of information on. And to get that kind of information available to the public, it's a real great resource. So yeah, students are great. We even have high school interns when appropriate as well. And so it's not just limited to our Hope college students, but we love having young people here. We have docents that during the school year that are coming in on their days that they have availability so that they could become docents and share the history of the museum with the public. And it's great for people to come in and see multi-generation working and engaged at the museum.
395-1450. If you have a question for Ricki Levine, she is the executive director of the Holland Museum here on WHTC's Talk of the Town program. Tell us a little bit about a new book club that the museum is all involved with.
Yeah, so this is a collaboration that we have with another local nonprofit, which is really a wonderful way to get kids and adults, because they are actually incorporating more books for adults, in a diversity and cultural celebration book club. And what you do is you just sign up online and you tell us what kind of books you're interested in. And we will set aside books for you and put them in a satchel, and you can pick them up. And when you're done reading them, or your kids are done reading them, you return them and you'll have other books available for you. So it's a library system, but it's really very specific to learning about different cultures, different races, different religions, both here locally in the United States, but also globally.
We're talking with Ricki Levine and speaking about diversity and learning about other cultures. February is Black History Month, and certainly the Holland Museum, like many other institutions, celebrating that. The focus to many people is when you talk about Black history, you talk Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's fine, but there are others that need to be spotlighted as much as what Dr. King has done for the effort for the African American community.
Yeah, absolutely. And, because of the pandemic, we've scaled back a little bit on what we're doing for Black History Month, but it's an offshoot of MLK Day, which was January 18th. So we have kept up our photograph exhibit of Dr. King, his legacy, his life. So that's still up in the museum. And then we also incorporated on MLK Day a history of inventors and their inventions. And these people that we are highlighting are people with diverse backgrounds. So not just people of color, although that's a big part of it, but also women, because women are very often not thought of as inventors, not thought of as being scientists or engineers, and then also people with disabilities. So it's really encompasses that entire demographic. And we've had an exhibit like that in Spark Lab Over the years, Spark Lab's been open, but we extended it again because Spark Lab's not open. We have also extended it and put it in the other parts of the museum, so you can explore those. But we also have our programs that are part of our Cultural Lens series, and those are always accessible because we record most of those programs and then they remain on our website. So there's lots of rich information there about different individuals, different access to different cultures and ways that we could perhaps be more unified and more as a one country versus separate entities.
Ricki, there have been subjects that the museum has been willing to tackle that of interest. We mentioned last year about the race relations situation, and the museum had some programs along that line. But a longstanding issue in this community has been dealing with not only low-income housing, but affordable housing and fair housing. And you have a special overview coming up early next month about that with a speaker that, let's put it this way, very compelling speaker. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so this is, we've been working and talking to the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan for quite some time now, trying to figure out what kind of programs we might be able to offer. And so we're really excited about this one on March 4th. It's called Fair Housing, a historical overview. And the speaker that you're referring to is our very own Dr. Fred Johnson, professor at Hope College. He will be speaking along with Liz Keegan, who's also from the Fair Housing Center. And they are going to talk about really redlining and how other things have impacted housing that we are dealing with now, as you indicated, affordable housing, a big piece of it, and what that process has been, how we've gotten to this point. And so it's going to be a really, I'm sure, compelling, it's a virtual program, and it'll be held on March 4th from 7 to 8:30 in the evening. We invite people to register, invite people to share any questions they may have ahead of time, so we'll make sure that those are addressed. But it's going to be an interesting evening, as any conversation with Dr. Johnson is.
Yeah, I was not putting any aspersions about Ms. Keegan's speaking abilities, but we have heard and we have seen Fred Johnson in action, and that's why I mentioned as a very compelling speaker. Along the lines in this type of program, you got something for the kids, I think. Fair Housing 5 and the Haunted House. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so this is another partnership with the Fair Housing Center, and this is really exciting for us. It's the first time we're going. But the Fair Housing 5 and the Haunted House is a book. It's a children's book. And it's available in English and in Spanish. And so we are going to be reading them in both languages. And the other really cool thing about it is upon registration, and we're getting the registration details up on the website, should be done by the end of this week, you can ask for one of those books. So we will send you, as long as you register within the time period we need, either one of those books in English or Spanish. We will mail it to your home so you and your kids can read along at the same time it's being read to you. And there's going to be an activity that goes with that book that comes to your home. So it's really good to get kids involved and understanding some of these things at an early age. And this is a program that's really designed for them. So it's not too overwhelming and it's not too disturbing, but it's giving them an awareness of where we are now with fair housing.
395-1450. We're chatting with Ricki Levine, who is the executive director of the Holland Museum. We touched upon this a little bit earlier when we talked about the ongoing exhibit that will be ending at the end of near the end of the month about elections. But the new exhibit, can you give us a little sneak peek about what we might be in store for in the month of March?
I'm super excited about this one, Gary. So this is called Matthias Alton Beyond the Oil Paintings. And you may recall, we had a really lovely exhibition last year of Matthias Alton. We had received several oil paintings from one of his surviving grandchildren. She donated them to the museum. And all of those oil paintings were of his time in the Netherlands. And Matthias Alton is known for his oil paintings. He's well known in Michigan in particular. He lived in Grand Rapids. He was a German immigrant. He moved here and lived in Grand Rapids, but he traveled all over the world, all over the country, and painted. One of the things he's not known as well for are some of his sketches and his watercolors. And we have the opportunity to share them through this exhibit. This is all these items are on loan from Grand Valley State University Art Gallery. And this is the 150th anniversary of Alton's birth. And there have been several museums in the area that have been showcasing some of his work, most recently the Muskegon Art Museum, the Grand Rapids Art Museum, but they've been showcasing mostly his oil paintings. What we're going to be showing are some things that are rarely exhibited and rarely exhibited together. So it's going to be a real treat, very different from anything that you've seen in our museum before regarding Alton, but really, I think it'll give you a real sense of who he was and what else he did. And many of these sketches that he did ended up being murals. So they were the preliminary works that he did before he made a bigger piece.
One final thing, and we'll button up our conversation, which we normally do, to allow people an opportunity to be a part of the museum, because certainly a lot of things that the museum is doing, you need the community's help on, not just their participation in person, but their participation financially. How can people be a part of the museum?
Well, we welcome kinds of support, but yes, if we are compelling to you and you would like us to continue the work we're doing, we invite you to be a member of the museum, which gives you access to the museum on a regular basis. And there's 3 very simple levels of membership, starting at $35 for an individual. But then there's also ways to support us financially as a donor. And that's an important way that we can continue keeping our doors open, particularly during these difficult times. The revenue stream has definitely gone down. We are not doing our fundraising events as we've done in the past. We don't have as much admission. We're not having the educational tours and programs that are coming in. So to keep us going, and so that when we are all healthy and we are able to engage the way we used to, one of my pleas has been to the community is support your arts and cultural organizations, because Health and Human Services absolutely need it. We need people to have roofs over their heads and food on their table. There's no doubt about it. But when this is all over, you're also going to want your arts and cultural organizations, whether it's the theater, the symphony, or your museum.
So again, those levels of membership, 35 for a basic, 50 for a family, premium 125. And the thing about the premium is it gets you reciprocal entrance to museums across the country that play nice with the Holland Museum, for lack of a better term there.
Across North America, not just the country. So yeah, it's even bigger than that.
Yeah, we're just saying the country right now because Great White North, we're not allowed there yet, but it'll be eventually there. Ricki Levine, she is the executive director of the Holland Museum. I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town program. And again,
thank you, Gary.
We'll put a link to the museum's webpage, which is hollandmuseum.org. We put the podcast of our conversation in our webpage at WHTC.com in a few minutes. Ricki, we look forward to talking to you again in March.
Stay warm, Gary.
Thank you very much, Ricki Levine on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.